Aspiring Master, and welcome to the Aspiring Master Presents. This is a show where we talk about the meanings, misunderstandings, and insights about the important words that we use and misuse on a daily basis. Really understanding what we're truly meaning when we talk allows us to convey and explain ourselves better to others. This not only allows us clearer communication so we can get what we need quicker and with less stress, but also helps us understand ourselves in more depth than we thought possible. In this episode, I welcome my special guest, Talia Wilson, who's going to help me talk about the word fair. So let's get to it. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Here we are at fair. And as usual, I'm going to start off the show by talking to you about the dictionary definition of what fair means. So let's go over here and do this. Okay, so the definition that we're going to use, there's a number of definitions, but the definition that we're going to use today is the first definition, and I'll give you the A and B definitions of this as well. So it's fair, marked by impartiality and honesty, free from self-interest, prejudice, or favoritism. The B definition, number one for the B definition, is conforming with the established rules. Now you see where people can get confused with this, right? And two, a consonant with merit and importance, right? Okay. And then the C definition of this is open to legitimate pursuit, attack, or ridicule. That's an interesting definition. Okay.
Wow.
Fair game, right? That's the use. And the second one is like a fair share. Right. Conforming with the established rules. Okay. A fair share. So really the first definition of this, marked by impartiality and honesty, free from self-interest, prejudice, or favoritism, is probably the one that we use the most. Right. That's what we use to mean fair when we're talking about it. Oh, it's not fair.
Yeah.
And what I find with the use of fair is, and here's my definition of it. Fair is a word we use when things aren't going the way that we want them to go, right? That's not necessarily meaning the real definition of the word, which is, impartiality, and equality is in there too, right? Like, I mean, we look at equality, anything like that. But when we're talking about fair, well, that's not fair, right? and here's, I think the biggest thing for me is fair is something that I see used all the time, and all the time it's used as I'm not getting what I want.
Yeah.
Right?
I was just going to say, it's so tied in with expectation that we don't even realize that we're, that's not fair is just a representation of our expectations not getting met.
Right. Exactly. And,
in a sense,
Right. And those expectations are tied to, and here's the thing, it's like, I'm going to go back to that first definition of fair. And it's like marked by impartiality and honesty, free from self-interest, prejudice, or favoritism. Well, unfortunately, I don't see that ever happening.
No, I was going to say, if you're whining that something isn't fair, I don't think impartiality is even part of the equation.
Well, let's look at how we were taught it, right?
Well,
remember our parents said, well, go ahead.
I guess it could be if you're talking about something not being fair to someone else,
right?
Instead of yourself.
Of course.
Say kids getting cancer, it's not fair that kids get cancer. Well, duh, but at the same time, it's still a biased opinion. It's not impartial.
Well, okay, let's go with that one. Really, I mean, when you say that somebody gets cancer, it's not fair that they get cancer, but in accordance to what? What are we defining fairness as, right? I mean, we don't even know what we are defining a fairness as.
Well, because I guess with cancer, people assume that if they get cancer, they're going to die sooner rather than later, which isn't always true. But it varies so much from person to person and type of cancer that I think they all just are lumped together.
Well,
in a way.
And I'm even being more specific here. When we're talking about the word fair, We're
Right.
going in regards to what? First off, fair, the way that we're using fair, it means that somebody out there has set some rule. So we're doing it in comparison to something, right?
Right.
So if I say it's fair that everybody not have cancer, right? Then that's the rule, and we're going, well, it's not fair that he got cancer, right?
True, but if nobody got cancer, there wouldn't be a thing as cancer research.
Well, that's true. I mean, and that's
So,
fine. But that's fine. We can imagine a world without cancer and without
right,
cancer research. We
right.
would put our energies towards something else. We know that.
Of
But
course.
it's the question of fair. It's
Fair.
they're not getting a fair shake. They're not. And the truth is, absolutely everybody is. Absolutely everybody has the potential to have
Mhm.
cancer. Absolutely
Right.
everybody are exposed to things. Part of it's genetics, part of it's
Part
all
of
of that
its
stuff.
environment. Yeah.
So when we're talking about fair in that situation, what are we talking about? We're not really talking about, is it fair? Well, in accordance to the rest of the universe, of course it is, because some people get cancer and some people don't. That's the
Well,
way
and
the universe works.
the statistics are 1 in 2 people.
Right.
So you can't really say it's not fair that someone gets cancer,
Exactly. It's 50-50 for
but
crying out
it is
loud.
50-50. But I guess in the terms of children getting cancer, it
Well,
does seem a little unfair because, you know, they
but
haven't been
again,
able to live their life.
here we are defining the word fair,
Oh,
right? In that whole, um, well, it's not fair because I don't like it. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't like it, and so therefore it's not fair.
yeah.
And I think that on a core level, I think that that's what we're using the word fair for. I don't like
Yeah,
it.
I would say it's definitely tied to our expectations of how things should be.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, when stuff doesn't go our way, i.e., our expectations are not being met, therefore it is unfair, whether or not it actually is or isn't. We just automatically assume that, oh, life has handed me this giant lemon. Life sucks. Life is unfair.
Hmm. Well, and here's the thing: is like we'll go. I'm just going to go right back to that
Sure,
definition, the
sure,
first
sure.
definition that we were talking about, and go marked by impartiality and honesty, free from self-interest, prejudice, or favoritism. Well, the truth is, nature is pretty much that.
Yeah.
It's like it's not prejudice. It doesn't say, well, I'm going to hit that guy with cancer, but not that guy with cancer because rich people get cancer and poor people get cancer. The only difference is, and if we're talking about an idea of what should be, right? So if we think that everybody should have equal access to medical stuff, equal access to a money pool that will allow them to get the best care in everything, all
Right.
of that stuff. If we're talking about equality, right, on that level, and if we're talking
Yes.
about like whether that it's healthcare equality, let's look at it that way.
Okay.
If we're using this as a bar, is it equal across the board? Absolutely, it's not. And so
No.
when people say that it is not equal, then they can say it's not fair
Yes.
because you get more than I get more. Now, let me say that it's not fair from your side because you're the one that doesn't have the money to do that. Whereas on
Mhm.
the other side is like it's completely fair. I spent my life earning this money and I'm part of the capitalist society and
Well, and
so on and so on and so on.
also, where are my tax dollars going?
Right.
Are
Well, and
they
I mean,
funding Medicaid or any of these other
well, and here
programs?
and here's where we run into a problem with the word fairness because it is very subjective. It
Yes.
is like I mean, because if you were raised in a different philosophy, right?
Mhm.
Whether it was religious philosophy or just any kind of philosophy, if you were raised in a different philosophy, different societies, the same thing.
Right.
Then your idea of what is fair is different than, say, my idea of fair,
Mhm.
and and the truth is that there's so many factors to it that even if you grew up in a society, if you had, say, a chemical imbalance
Right.
that said, maybe you're manic depressive. Well, when you're in your mania, what's fair there or what's not fair there is based on the chemical composition of what's running through your head and how you're feeling,
Right.
right? So the fairness. this expectation of, and I think that we can really narrow it down to, it's an expectation of, um, for the most part, equality, and the way that we would define equality, right?
Mhm.
Because it's like you'd have to break it down, because if we're looking at the medical system, it's the fairness of stature. So it doesn't matter your stature, the amount of money that you have, all of that stuff. If the system was fair, everybody would get treated well, right? Or the same, I guess, would be, it's like you don't get your separate bedroom and your catered meals and stuff like that. You just get the same thing that everybody else gets, and the same service that everybody else gets. And hopefully the quality of service is good, right? Um, and so we can take a look at that as being fair because it's equal, or equitable, I guess would probably be the best word. It would be equal treatment to everybody. Now,
Right.
we know that, and again, this is a fiction,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
This isn't anything that, this is this expectation of this should be something. We we have to understand that we have this fantastical idea of what life is supposed to do, what nature is supposed to do. And I mean, I think that, all, well, not all, but a lot of Buddhists that I've run into just say, "Oh, you have to accept the world the way it is," right? Um,
When most people think of what's fair and what's not fair, are they really being honest? Are they being impartial? Are they looking at, I don't think they're looking at the whole idea of fairness as being impartial or honest, because I think everyone's interpretation of fairness is subjective,
well,
like
and so is their
just everything
interpretation
else.
of honest, right?
Well, yeah,
It's like
yeah.
impartial.
And when their emotions are involved in it and they're emotionally invested in something that goes awry and it doesn't feel fair, they're not going to be approaching that objectively, you know, because emotions aren't objective, emotions aren't logical. So how can you say something isn't fair if you're so deeply in your emotion?
Well, I mean, and I think that if you're using the word fair, and it's one of those, it's probably one of those words that I would say would do us better not to have it. Um, it's like,
Other
because,
than in reference to carnivals.
well, that's true. Yeah, there is the carnivals, and we
Yeah,
definitely like fairs. If
yeah.
it wasn't for COVID, and we'd have to just watch them on TV, but um,
It's not as fun as riding the roller coaster and getting sick and throwing up
exactly.
on the person next to you.
Well, of course. I mean, throwing up on the person next to me is the ultimate fantasy of
Yeah.
going to the fair.
This
Um,
coming from the guy who gets seasick on the tilt-a-whirl.
well, yeah, I used to not get sick in tilt-a-whirl, and then I grew older. Yeah. So and I'm just going to go back to this definition
Yeah,
one
yeah.
more time here. It's like marked by impartiality and honesty, free from self-interest, prejudice, or favoritism. Well, when you're using the word fair or it's not fair, are you being that? Are you
No,
being fair?
no.
Like in
Most
accordance
people
to
aren't,
that?
because it's all about their self-interest,
Well, yeah.
their expectations not getting met. So that is a weird definition of fair, that it wouldn't be clouded by
Well,
your self-interest.
let's take a look at not stormy or foul, have very little color or coloring, pleasing to the eye, you're fair of face, superficially pleasing. She trusted his fair promises. Okay,
Mm.
clean and pure, fair, ample, promising or likely. Um, yeah, not very good or very bad, an average of acceptable quality. It's fair. Right? Now, that, which is interesting, that which is really a contradiction if you look at it.
Yeah, yeah,
Not
it really
not
is.
very good or very bad, of average acceptable quality. Her work is only fair, right?
So then if we're saying if something is not fair, then something is what, not middle of the road?
Exactly. And that's like,
Because
this
even
is,
if it's not going our way, at least if it's part way there, we're at least moderately happy, or we're going to pretend that we're happy.
well, I mean, I think that if it's fair, they say, like I said, yeah, I get an equal share. Where I was actually going initially was that our parents taught us, when you, like, say it's my birthday cake, right?
Right.
And I'm eating it the next day, right? Like I still have
Mhm.
birthday cake left over. And I have a brother or a sister, right? And I have a piece of my birthday cake,
Mhm.
right? They said, "Oh, well, aren't you going to share some with your brother or sister?" It's like, no, it's my birthday cake, right?
Right.
But and then the brother and sister, or the parent said, "Well, that's not fair," right? And 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 I do believe that as an equality instruction, right? Like, I mean, to
Mhm.
be able to understand and share. Like, I mean, I don't want to share. There's been lots of times that I've shared stuff that I was
Right.
sort of forced to share stuff,
Oh,
um, and and and
yeah.
this goes into a discussion on sharing, and a discussion on just
Giving, receiving.
giving and receiving, right?
Mhm.
So here I am. I need to share this because it's only fair, right? Well, it's not fair. What's happening is the parent in this case is trying to do one of two things. Either it's trying to calm down this brother or sister who's feeling dejected because they didn't get a piece of cake,
Mhm.
um, right? Because it's not fair that I didn't get a piece of cake, right?
Right.
He got a piece of cake. Why don't I get a piece of cake? Now, this is an adolescent way of looking at what fair is, and I think that we grew up with this idea. Now, I'm not dissing parents here because I think that we do have to teach our children how to be able to understand sharing and caring about other people. Okay,
Mhm.
I don't think that getting your people to give your brother or sister one, who by the way, if you ever grew up with a brother or sister, you know that you love and hate each other all the time, right? He always gets something or she always gets something, and I'm not getting something, and I want that something, and so therefore it's not fair that I get it,
Or right.
that I don't
Or,
get it. Right? Yeah.
she swore at me, I swore back, but I'm the one who gets in trouble.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
So so the other thing that the parents are trying to teach is the idea that um, when you are able to share things with other people, you create um, an environment of positivity that helps you in the future. Okay, so basically, you're investing in your future with it, right? So if I go, I've got my birthday cake, and I think about my brother or sister, and I go, oh, they would really like that. But on a deeper level, I'm thinking, well, if I gave that to my brother and sister, I betcha that later they might give me something when I want it, right? And that's a motivated self-interest,
It
absolutely.
is. But do
But
people really think like that?
oh,
Because
oh
I
yes, I
don't
do.
recall,
I do.
as a kid
I
being
did.
told I need to share and asking why.
Right.
Well, that's just the way it's
Right.
rude otherwise. It's rude
Yeah,
if you
it's
don't
rude.
share.
Oh,
Yeah.
God. Another one of my big bugbear words is rude. And again, rude actually goes hand in hand with share. It's that
Mhm.
that psychological strangle point that
Yeah.
that says, "Oh, well, if you don't, you're going to be rude." So, what if I'm
Yeah.
rude, right? Now, now what we do learn is that if we are considered rude, we don't get stuff from other people, right?
Mhm.
Again, we are talking about a social structure that allows us to move forward in our lives better if we do it a certain way. Um, and so learning that idea is a really, really good thing, right? There are times where it's no different than say, I'm a messy housekeeper, but when I invite people over, I clean up my house. Okay.
Well,
Part
yeah, I don't know anybody who doesn't do that except
exactly.
neat freaks.
Well, but part of it is it's not about being fair. Part of it
No.
is I don't want other people to think badly of me. So therefore, I will do something because in this society, if you are not what is considered cleanly by one person, doesn't matter who, because it's
Yeah.
subjective to lots of people. But if you are not considered cleanly, then you're dirty, and that reflects on how people judge you or condemn you on your personal level. So
Yeah.
we are in a sense manipulating other people's view of us so that we don't have to deal with whatever. And
Right.
sharing and fairness and rude and all of that stuff are ways of making us do that. I've heard people, I remember when you came up here and you used rude quite a bit with me. And I'm going, and you know my person. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay. I'm rude for not doing it. So what does rude mean? Right? Like, I mean, I'm just like, what does rude mean? Does that mean that I'm not doing something that you want me to do, and so therefore I'm rude, which means that I'm bad? Um, you know, just because I'm not doing what you want me to do doesn't mean that I'm rude. It just means that I'm not doing what you want me to do. Same thing, fair, right? Well, that's not
Mhm.
fair. Well, of course it's not. It's not equitable. I'm not giving you stuff that you would like. I'm not
No,
making you
no,
feel
but
better.
I guess rude would have been the wrong word. I probably meant more impolite, like
Yeah.
going to visit your mom and taking food that you're going to eat and not bringing anything for her,
Well, I
you know?
agree. And like I mean, I never thought that way, and nor did my mother. She taught me how to do that, right? And she would eat, right? And not offer me
Mhm.
stuff, but I
Yeah.
never even thought about it, right? Like I mean, it just
Mhm.
never even crossed my mind that I would need to eat, like that you owe me any of your food, right? It's your food, you're eating it. What
I
what the
I
heck,
didn't
right?
think that owing would be a part of it.
Well, no, no, of course not. But remember that when you say that I'm being impolite, so
Mhm.
the polite thing to do would be to offer somebody food. The question is why? Why is that polite? What in it is polite? And what are you curtailing? What are you circumventing by doing this? So I'm going to offer you some food, right? So what am I circumventing? I'm trying to make you feel better because you might feel dejected that I didn't give you food, right? That in my mind is just like, what? Like, I mean, how do people in this day and age think that they have some kind of onerous thing on your food? I'm not really sure what this
Okay,
is.
you're going a little too far with the food thing.
Well,
It was
but
just an
well,
analogy.
no, no, of course, but I've run into it a lot, right?
Well, yeah.
That specific one
Well,
was,
I think the you're coming into someone else's space.
mhm,
You're bringing consumables just intended for you.
right.
So, if you were to make a mess, they'd have to clean up or something. I mean, you're invading their space and you're eating in front of them when you
Well,
don't
it's
have to.
it's interesting that you used invading. Usually, I'm invited over, and secondly,
You didn't
uh,
always used to call your mom before you went over.
well, of course not. She's my mom, dude. It's like, and she didn't mind. That's the thing. She didn't
Yeah,
care.
but not everybody was Shelly,
Well,
okay?
well, of course not everybody was Shelley, but again, in my mind, these are the questions that I asked.
Right.
I said, "Why is this impolite or rude?" Because that presupposes that somebody has an expectation of what you should be doing in this situation. So I look at what I should be doing in this situation is offering you part of my food or offering to bring you something, right? Now, I understand that politeness will make somebody soften towards me, right? They will like me better if I'm more polite, right? And if I'm going somewhere and I'm going to stop off to get something to eat, I always offer. I said, "Hey, I'm going here. Did you want me to pick you something up?" Right? And we go, "Yeah, that's merely polite." But why? Right? And I just like,
Because that's
and
what we've been taught.
what, but yeah, exactly. It's because we were told that like, I mean, when I say we, I wasn't, right?
Okay,
So
well, we know that.
I came into this from an alien perspective of going, huh?
That's putting it mildly.
I'm going, wait a minute. What do you mean? Why I have to now, not only do I think about people and get them stuff, but now I have to think about it when I'm eating, right?
Well, this goes back to um, leaving the dirty, what was it, knife or fork in the cake.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And my
Yeah, at
mom
your
getting
parents' place. Yeah.
upset.
Oh, she
Yeah.
became up. She was so upset. Well, I mean, I was going to eat the rest of it, right? So it's
Well,
like,
yeah, yeah. It was
but
gonna go stale. I could never eat a whole birthday cake myself. And my dad would eventually finish them off because he likes to eat his cake in a bowl with milk on top.
exactly. Stop talking
So
about cake. Now I'm hungry. Um, no, I'm teasing. I realize that I'm talking about this very clinically because we really have to take a look at what our motivations are. And fair, going back to that subject, fair is one of those things. Fair and rude, and we have to take a look at these things and why we say them inside ourselves. One of the things and I've asked some people about this, and food is one of them, is that, like I said, so if I'm eating food in front of you, does it make you feel uncomfortable? And they go, yeah. And I go, why? And they go, I don't know. Right? It's like, I don't know why. Is it because you
Yeah.
want some or you would like some? Well, yeah, kind of, right? Like, and I said, okay, but then why aren't you being responsible and speaking up and say, hey, do you mind if I have some of that? I'm really kind of hungry, right? Or whatever, right? But again, that's not acceptable in this society. But it's on a level of personal responsibility. It's something that we got to really take a look at, because
Mhm.
if we can't do it there, we can't do it anywhere, right?
Right.
We can't really do it. One of the reasons we get plowed under so much by and overpowered by people so much just on a conversational level is
Mhm.
because we don't want to interrupt. We
Right.
don't want to be impolite. We don't want to
Right.
be. And I
Well,
think,
and I think some of that goes to
hey, wait a minute,
being
you're
in
interrupting. No.
funny, being in school when you're told to sit down and shut up and not talk to unless you're spoken to,
Right.
and interrupting someone was bad, or, interjecting. And, you know, I hated being called on in school, because by the time the teacher got to me, I'd forget what I wanted to say anyways. It's like, I don't know. So I think that, yeah, just between our families and our experiences in school, we've all been conditioned to act these certain ways based on somebody's idea of manners. I'm guessing Emily Post or
Well, I
Robert's
mean,
Rule of
uh,
Orders or
well, I mean,
something.
our parents were raised a certain way, right? And they were
Yeah.
they were within the rules of their time.
Well,
Um,
yeah, they had to experience corporal punishment in schools.
right, exactly. And I mean, I grew up in an area where they were still giving the strap. They don't do that anymore.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
see, I missed that, but I also remember other kids at daycare getting their mouths washed out with soap
so, yeah,
if they lied or if they said a bad word.
right.
I don't know how I got through 10 years of daycare without getting mine washed out
Well,
with soap, but
there's one thing to be said, that we need to figure out how to create discipline in our lives,
right.
and we use I think we use fairness
Mhm.
as a tool for that, to be able to say, oh, well, if everything is fair. But here's the thing. Based on what we understand about fairness, impartiality, and equality, I think that
Mhm.
we use equality mostly for fairness
Right.
and
Right.
and equality. So I get an equal share of what's
Mhm.
going on here,
Right.
or um, and fairness is really important to us as human species, by the way. Like, it
Yeah.
is hugely important. It is really, really stuck in our DNA. We find that people prefer, most people prefer fairness to more money. Um, it's like if you were playing a game and say money was on the line,
Mhm.
um, and if you left the game, you got to go away with $10. But if you stayed in the game, you had to share that $10 with somebody else, maybe $2 of it with somebody else if they lose.
Mhm.
You only go away with 8, but they get 2, right?
Right.
There's lots of people that would say, well, that's fair, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm getting the majority, but I'm still
Yeah.
giving something back, right?
Yeah.
So that the other person isn't thinking I'm this evil guy taking everything. Now,
Right.
and I think that when we get caught up in that whole idea of fair, I'm not getting my share, I think, is really uh, where we come from on this. I'm not getting my share. Well, but what are you entitled to? That's, again, we come back to, what do you think you're entitled to? What do
Right.
you think that we are all entitled to? So, and I talk to people that build business, and I said, well, is it fair that you are now, the grabbing the market share of all business? And they go, well, of course it is. I worked my buns off to get here, right?
Mhm.
To have the market share, to figure out how this stuff works, and you haven't done it at all, right?
Mhm.
And so therefore, yeah, it's totally fair. Now, but again, it's fair to you because you have the pie and you
Yeah.
have the intelligence and the wherewithal and all of those things that you have in abundance that allowed you to have these things. Whereas I
Mhm.
don't, and I'm struggling like mightily to do that. But hey,
Right.
maybe I don't have the experience. Maybe I don't have friends that know what to do. I don't have any of those things. I don't have the advantages. And so, does that feel fair to me? That
Right.
you have all of those things that I don't?
It's like if you were looking for a computer tech job and they wanted, you know, a degree,
Hmm.
and here you've worked as a computer tech how many different times?
Well, like, I mean,
And
years. It's like since I was a
yeah,
kid,
yeah.
right?
So it's like you get to the point where, okay, so what if he doesn't have a bachelor's in computer science? That doesn't mean he's not knowledgeable, has experience, you know, it's the same type of thing. But then on the other side, you get the people who spent the money to go to school to learn this stuff going, well, why is that guy over there getting the job over me?
Right.
Because I paid my dues and he's just some Joe Blow who fixed computers in a garage.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He fixed computers in the
Yeah,
garage, and not only that, like he's buddy with the guy there, or like, I mean,
right.
and it's like that's not fair because I. But again, it all depends on what side you're on.
Exactly.
If you're getting the stuff,
To
if you're
getting the
getting a
stuff,
whole,
you don't
you
care how you
you don't.
got it.
Now,
To a point.
to be
To
fair
a
though,
point.
to be fair though, um, when we're looking at it, we have to look at the other side of it too. There are people that do that recognize that they have more
Mhm.
than everybody else,
Yeah,
that they have more of this, more of that, that go out of their way to give that stuff back to people,
right.
and share their abundance. And I think that sharing the abundance, it's not equality, but it's sharing, and
Mhm.
it's
Well, it's
being sensitive to,
collaboration,
yeah,
it's, teaching. I mean,
yeah,
there's so many different things you can, you know,
I do.
yeah, I can't think of the right word. Equate to that, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's like there are people that we would consider as, well, hey, they got all of this money and they have the lion's share, but at least they're trying to give back. And so we feel mollified because they're doing something for the little guy, right?
Right.
Or the little girl, or so
Whomever.
whomever, right? Um,
Mhm.
so we feel mollified that these people are doing something or giving something back because they're not just taking. And I think that too, fairness comes down to, um, are you taking it all and not giving any back, right? Or
Right.
sharing any with me, which is, well, it's not fair that they do that. I'm going to go back to the cancer analogy here
Mhm.
because I think that it was really important to understand that life is not uh, fair in regards to, if I get something bad, right?
Yeah.
But life is really the fairest thing in the entire universe. It's impartial,
Mhm.
right? It's
Well,
not doing anything to you that your genetics didn't program into you or whatever.
right. I mean, so many people consider stuff like that, a consequence of lifestyle
Mhm.
choices. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's genetics, and other times it's exposure to, say, chemicals
Of course.
that you had no say in, like the example of um, the increasing numbers of sterility in males, and they're finding out they're getting exposed to certain chemicals in the womb.
Right.
I mean, they have no say in that.
Well, of course, and they don't have any
So you
say in that.
can't, yeah, you can't make an equivalency with lifestyle choices and exposure to toxic environments when you don't have a say in what you're exposed to. It's like the stupid argument that every fat person is lazy, you know,
Mhm.
and that is not true because you know many have medical issues, chemical issues, they're on certain medications and they have no control over it.
I agree. We jump to conclusions and judgments and condemnations
Absolutely.
all the time.
Yes. Have you seen a comment section
Yeah,
lately?
exactly. Um, and so we've got all of that going against us.
Mhm.
And is it fair? Right?
Well,
Is
not
it
to the
fair?
person the vitriol is
But
directed at.
again,
Absolutely
it's
not.
like, again, it's not fair on really either side if we're going by that definition that we were looking at.
Right. Right.
It's not impartial.
No.
And I have to say that life and chemicals and stuff like that are impartial to the rest of the world because chemicals react with other chemicals the way that they do physically, and that's the way it works.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's probably the most fair thing
Mhm.
that I can say. Now, just because you're on the tail end of an explosion doesn't mean that it's not fair. Um, and
Right.
and I mean, that's the same thing with cancer. It doesn't seem fair. No, it doesn't when you look at it from the standpoint of a fictional idea of what should be happening,
Exactly.
then it doesn't seem fair at all.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like you can even make the equivalency of um, being in a relationship or a marriage and saying, I did not sign up for this. I did
right.
not sign up to have a spouse get cancer or
Yeah.
a child get
Well,
cancer. And it's like,
eh,
actually, yes, you did. You make that, stereotypical vow of for better, for worse, rich or poor, sickness and health, yada, yada, yada. You do sign up for it. And most people don't realize that they actually
well,
do
and well,
because you never know what's going to happen, you know.
and here's the idea of personal responsibility
Mm-hmm.
of really knowing
Yep.
that that is exactly what you're doing. When you
Mm-hmm.
make a choice, you make a choice. And so say you know, let's just look at it as an analogy of two paths, right? Like we're
Okay.
walking along a path and we come
Right.
to a fork and there's two choices here. And if I go down this way, the way that looks easier,
Mm-hmm.
or perhaps just looks nicer, whatever,
Yeah.
then I have a whole bunch of things that I have to accept on that path. I have to say, if I walk down this path because the flowers smell nicer over here, um, it it's there's going to be far more than just nice smelling flowers here.
Yeah. You're
You know,
making me think of the Bambi Trail and the Ridgeline Trail in the forest.
yes, exactly. It's
Yeah.
the
Because the
same
Bambi
analogy,
Trail is flat. It can be a little marshy,
right?
you know, and you're going to run into more people. Whereas the Ridgeline Trail goes up and down. You got to crawl over some down trees and you come down the hill on the fire road and then you get a little bit of a workout because you got to walk uphill.
Right, exactly. And what
Yeah.
happens if because you're climbing over trees, you fall down and break your ankle, right? Now but that's the thing is if you choose that trail, you choose those risks.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, you choose a risk every time you get in your car,
Yeah.
every time you go for a walk, every time you sit in a movie
Mhm.
theater. You never know if it's going to catch on fire or
Yeah.
this is a
Well,
really bad one, but you never know if someone's going to have a gun and start shooting.
start shooting.
You,
Well,
you never
absolutely.
know, you know.
You don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know
Exactly.
that going down that trail with the flowers smelling as good as they smell, if that's going to be um, the best thing for you, right?
Right.
That maybe the flowers smell great, but there's an alligator over the next hill, or um, like we just don't know. Now,
Right.
would it be fair to say that say I go, oh, you know what? That path smells like swamp and this one smells like flowers, so I'm going to go
Mhm.
down this path because
Right.
it smells
You
great.
don't want to smell swamp today.
Yeah, I don't want to smell swamp today. So based on those things, I've
Right.
chosen this path. And now I can do it unconsciously, which is what most of us do,
Right.
is we just go, well, it's obviously going to be better. And we build this idea in our mind because of how it smells, is that it's going to be all roses and all of that stuff. And we climb over the hill and it's in a garbage dump. All of a sudden you couldn't smell it because it wafted over the hill, right? But then the garbage dump. Whereas the other side is you go through a bit of smell and then it comes out roses on the other side and you're in a beautiful garden. Um, so we go in there and it's a garbage dump. And now we're wading through the garbage dump. And the thing is you can't go back generally. When we make a choice, we can't just go, ooh, backsies. Um,
Yeah.
it's like, no, no, no. I want to go and make that choice again. I want to make the other choice now, because
Right.
when you make a choice, you open up a trail of awareness, really.
Exactly.
Um,
Well, you
eh,
can't unring the bell,
yeah. Well,
to
I mean,
use
once
a really bad analogy there,
yeah,
but
exactly. It's
yeah.
like you can, if you go over that hill and you go, oh, this looks like there's a garbage dump here. No way. I'm going to go back and go to the other way. Now, who
Mhm.
knows? Maybe the other way is like it's even worse, right?
Yeah, maybe
It's
there's a
like,
serial killer
uh,
out or something.
but when we're talking about is it fair that there's a garbage dump over there, has nothing to do with anything. Is it
Right.
fair that people in this society take advantage of other people, right?
No,
I
but they
I
do.
I don't think that is there's equality to it at all. I don't think
No.
that we live in a society that has equality built into it at all. I think that capitalism breeds inequality. That's what it
Oh
does,
yeah,
right?
definitely.
It's inequality of like it's not again not fair. We're not equal. Nobody talks to us and gives us jobs equal on our merits. It's if they
Right.
like you, if you're going to fit
Hmm.
in with them, if yeah,
Or whose family you belong to, or what friends you
exactly.
know, or
There's nothing is impartial, right?
no.
I think that when we're talking about life, I think life is probably the only fair thing based on that definition in the world. The only
Yes.
fair thing because it is impartial. It doesn't care who you are, what your
Hmm.
circumstances are, anything like that. It
Right.
says if these parameters are met, whether it's genetically, chemically, whatever, you're going to get cancer,
Yeah.
right? If you're exposed to this, if exposed to that, and I mean, now we know that when we're talking about cancer, the likelihood of getting cancer, if you're poor as opposed to rich, is far more likely because
Yes.
of sanitary conditions and conditions of your town. Just look at Flint,
Hmm.
Michigan, right?
Oh my
So,
God. Yeah.
right, you're far more likely to get cancer at Flint, Michigan, and the one that Aaron Brockovich did the plant. I saw the
Wow.
movie. Um,
Yeah. Hinckley.
Yeah, Hinckley, right?
Yeah.
If you're living in Hinckley, which were a lot of poor people living in Hinckley, right? So if you're poor, you're more likely to get exposed to a lot of the chemicals. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that those people up higher up didn't, right? Or
No, I
won't,
mean, you think of
or
the when they were making the movie, oh God, what was it called? It was one where John Wayne played Genghis Khan,
oh,
and
right,
they
right, right,
were
yeah,
downwind from a nuclear test site, and
and that's
what
why
nine
everybody got cancer.
yeah,
Yeah,
90 crew members and cast ended up getting cancer, and that was the cancer that ended up killing,
killing John Wayne, right?
John Wayne. Yeah. So I mean, they didn't ask for that, but
Right. Is that
it
was that
was
fair? Like, I mean, was it fair? But again, fair
but
is
look
subjective.
on the other side of this. John Wayne's last movie, The Shootist, a guy dying of cancer in his spine. And it's a hell of a performance, you know. And it's what a good swan song. Would it have been the same if he wasn't dying of cancer and that wasn't his last movie? I mean, not that I'm saying that John Wayne should have just died or not died or whatever, but
Right.
at the same time,
Well, I mean, it's like we make the best of what
make the
happens
best.
to us
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the choices that we made and how we did that. I mean, whether we like it or not, John Wayne said, "I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be a great actor, and
Mhm.
I'm going to trust in my director or whatever."
Yeah.
And they chose a bad place to film because there was
Mhm.
nuclear testing going on, and at the time they probably thought it was going to be okay.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of factors to that. And you can sit there on the other side and start blaming, well, it wasn't fair that the government was doing nuclear tests just down the road and told us it was okay. And, yeah, it wasn't fair. But
But at the time, did they know it wasn't okay?
but
That's the thing.
it's we're going back to that whole idea of it's not about fair. It's about
Mhm.
what is working and what's not working and
Right.
how you choose to deal with it. Um, I find that when people say, "Well, it's not fair," I find it's a cop out. I think that it's people not taking responsibility. It's like, no, it
Yeah.
doesn't feel good. I
Yeah, it doesn't
agree.
feel good. It's not fair. It must not be something I did or that I can control.
Right.
That's literally what saying it's not fair is saying, that I'm being wronged and the universe is wronging me. Therefore, I'm not going to take responsibility for any of the choices that led to this point where all of a sudden things aren't fair. Not to say that like cancer is anyone's fault,
Right.
you know.
Well, and I mean, and I nor should anybody interpret anything like that from
No,
this.
no, no,
But
no, no, no,
we
no.
have to talk about these things, and we have to
Yeah,
really look at some of the other sides to this.
yeah. Okay.
We
Another example.
mhm,
Sorry to interrupt. Um, Now in Canada, the number one cause of death is cancer.
right,
In the US, it's the number two because the number one is heart disease or cardiovascular issues.
right,
So, putting myself out here for a little bit, being overweight, having been overweight most of my adult life. Okay. Am I at more risk for heart disease? Absolutely. Does that put me more risk for cancer? Probably. Even if I were to get some kind of issue that was directly related to having been overweight and stuff. Am I going to be, oh, woe is me, la, 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 the universe is so unfair? Maybe for 5 minutes. And then it's like, well, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. I should have done that instead of this, or, you know,
well, I
you
think that
know,
you're touching on
because
something that's fundamental to fairness, and it's about shame and blame,
yeah, there's a
right?
lot of that.
I think that when we feel and it's victimhood too. I think that people that what you're talking about is victimhood,
Mhm.
and that people that think that things are unfair means that they're thinking they're victims of somebody or something, right?
But in that vein, with shame and blame, are people accepting blame and taking responsibility because they're being shamed? And if they weren't being shamed, would they take responsibility for whatever?
Right. Well, and that's certainly a question. I think that we don't teach how to take responsibility as we're growing up.
No.
This society specifically teaches that it's got to be somebody else's fault.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's no different. Like the other day, I was out playing some disc golf with some guys, and I got pissed off at the way that I was shooting, right? And and I
At least you
recognize.
can't bite your discs like you could your badminton racket.
Exactly. But I recognize that I was being that guy that I don't hang out with other guys because
Right.
there's other guys that I've hung out with that are just total downers, right? Like you go out there to have a good time and they're like, like so. But I recognize that I was being that guy, and I'm just like, I got to stop being this guy, right? I don't want to be that guy. When I'm out disc golfing with other people, I don't want to be that guy. If I'm that guy in private and I'm coming down on myself because it's never about anybody else. It's always about me doing crappy, because I have this fictional idea of what I should be doing. It's not
Right.
fair that I'm not living up to my own ideals, um, right? So now, in is that and that's a fair assessment of
Yes.
a situation. I step back, I take a look, and I
Hmm.
said, "Oh, wait a minute,
Hmm.
I'm being that guy.
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
to not be that guy."
But
Um,
not everybody can disconnect themselves from their emotions and look at this
mhm,
objectively. And that's the thing, because a lot of people, when they do get upset and say something is unfair, they're feeling the emotions around that.
right,
And it's like getting angry and you and me having an argument. It's like, no, I don't want to talk to you right now because I'm upset and I don't want to say something that I don't mean, and two, would probably end up regretting. So it's like, okay, go to our neutral corners. And then it's what, not even 10 minutes later,
mhm.
you know, okay, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
you know. But I mean, being together, what, almost 13 years now?
Yeah.
We've gotten used to how I react, how you react, how we recover from getting our feelings hurt. So we know that if the other person says, I need 5 minutes, or I need 10 minutes, or I need till the next day or whatever, to back off, quit poking, let them work through their stuff, but not everybody can do that. I mean, and when I'm doing that, I'm still feeling like, God, why did he make me so mad? I just want to, rip his tonsils out if he had them. But
Right. I lost him a long
you
time
know,
ago, honey.
so I understand how hard it is to divorce yourself from your emotions to look at a situation, objective, well, maybe not objectively, but at least more rationally than when you're extremely upset. So I get how hard that is, because it took me a long time to be able to do that without wanting to throttle you. And I remember you used to let me yell at you,
Right.
just give it to me, let it out. It's like, okay. It was like when my mom would get angry and I'd tell her, Mom, just vent. No one's in the car but us. Just let it out. And then, 5-10 minutes, she's fine. She's singing along to the radio. you know Maybe it doesn't resolve the issue, but it gets that emotion. Yeah, it gets, you are able to at least move past the emotion in the moment. Maybe it's not resolved, but does it need to be resolved? Depends
Well,
on
I
the
mean,
situation.
well, and bringing it back to how that affects fairness, right?
Mhm.
I think that when you were talking, what was going through my mind was, how does fairness make me feel, right?
That's a good
How
one.
when how do I feel when it's fair? And this is where we get that idea of fairness. It's like when we feel a certain way, we feel that it's unfair. And if we feel another way, we feel it's fair. Um, and so what is that feeling that says unfair?
Lack,
Right. Okay.
whether it's
So
from your expectations not being met, something not being fulfilled, feeling lonely, feeling angry. I mean, it's you're essentially lacking something you think you deserve.
okay, yes. Well, absolutely. I think that bottom
Mhm.
line, you are correct. But let's take a look at what we say it feels like. Um,
Okay.
and and I think the word that comes up for me is I feel deprived.
Yes,
Okay,
which
or
is
I
still
feel
lack.
no, or it's definitely still lack, but I feel deprived, or I feel somebody else is being deprived. Right? Because we can feel that it's unfair for other people because we equate it to ourselves, right? We just go, well, if I was in that position, it would feel like this. So if
But
I
why do we need, why do we feel we need to take on, you know, perceived feelings in defense of someone else? I mean, that's not taking personal responsibility for your feelings. I mean, it kind of is, because you're saying if that happened to me, this is how I would feel. One, you don't know, you're just speculating. And two, it's okay to be angry and feel sad and whatever for another person, but it's still not the situation happening to you. It's still happening to them. So why do those feelings matter when it concerns somebody else?
no, I agree. Um, and 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 what I'm really trying to look for is in ourselves. So let's put us in a situation
Okay.
um, of of because I think it's jealousy. Really, I think that that's in
Ooh,
there,
they're
right?
getting the attention you're not.
Yeah,
That can be
I'm not
part of it,
I'm not getting what I feel is my fair due.
especially if you've been in a similar situation or feel the same way about someone or something,
Right.
and they're
Well,
getting the attention you're not.
well, now here's a this is a personal one for me because I
Mhm.
know that that I react. I don't react so much these days, but I have and still have that reaction every once in a while of the fact that if I do something, right,
Mhm.
that's really good, right?
Right.
So, but well, how do I how would I put this so that it's like if I'm playing disc golf, right? If I throw this perfect throw and it goes right in the hole, right? when we talk about a hole, it's just right in the basket. And it's an ace. It's what we call an ace. It's a hole in one in disc golf. And I get a hole in one and I'm with, say, two other people, right? And they just go, right? And I don't get that recognition.
Right.
I feel let down because I deserve that. If I'm not
But
being
also,
recognized by that, I have that. Well, that's just not fair. They cheer each other, but they won't cheer me, right? You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I
So
was going to say, but if they were the one getting the ace, would you be cheering them?
of course. But that's because I know how it feels to get an ace, and I want to celebrate that with them, and I want to let them know that I acknowledge and I know their that prowess. Now, it's you're not going to run into that. It's very, very rare that you ever run into that situation. But it as an analogy, because there's lots of stuff that I do, and I do right. Like, I mean, I just go, if somebody's not going, you know, that was really awesome. I'm glad you did that. If I don't get appreciation for something, I tend to get upset and jealous and feel like it's not fair, right?
But say you are in a group of guys playing disc golf and that happens. Are they just not acknowledging because maybe they don't know you that well?
Well,
Maybe,
and
you know,
again, if we're taking the other side, everybody has a reason to do whatever they do.
mhm,
Okay, whether that's they didn't cheer for me, or he didn't cheer for me, or maybe he
right.
didn't see the shot, or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not. It's never about that. The analogy is never about that. And like you're saying, we always have to, when we're taking responsibility for ourselves and our feelings, we always have to look at the other side. And now here's one that you have that I do, and you have said, why are you defending them? Um, Before I explained to you what I was doing, right? I said, listen, we have to see everything from every side. You can't just jump to a conclusion, make a condemnation of these people or person or, situations until you've taken a look at how they might be viewing it. Right. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're saying, well, what if these guys were not looking, or maybe they have an emotional issue, so they don't cheer for anybody, or, like, I mean, there's literally thousands of reasons why these people could have done that, not necessarily of just dissing you. Right.
No, they could
Um,
be jealous. They could be having a
and
bad day.
it could be anything. But the
Mhm.
truth is, it's none of my business what they are doing. It's only my business what I am doing. And if I'm taking it as this fictional idea of fairness, that they should be celebrating my victory for me, right? Or acknowledging my victory, or acknowledging anything that I do, then I'm not giving it with any freedom. Have an expectation of what they should be giving me back. And if they're not giving me something back, what is it? It's not fair,
There.
right?